Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations, and it's likely no surprise that this is the next piece we're going to work on. It's pretty shaky. The legs are all loose. The paint is just peeling off of it as we speak. It's really worn and dirty and grungy, and I rescued it from I don't know where I got this. Somebody was throwing it out. It was going to a dump. It was going somewhere, and somebody said, "Hey, do you want it?" So I said, "Yes, sure." So first order of business, I'm going to take the legs off. They all need to be tightened anyway. I think it's going to be easier to sand off some of the old paint without them. I'm not necessarily going to sand these down to nothing, although I'm likely going to have to sand the top down to nothing. I am envisioning painting the legs, so we'll see how that goes, but it'll be easier once they're off this anyway. So I'm going to take the legs off, and I'm going to get my big sander and my mask, and I am going to get this off. I'll likely scrape it first to get a lot of the big chips off, and then I'll start sanding. So you don't need to hear the noise or see the dust, but just know I'm sanding off the top and I'm cleaning off the legs. That's it. No big magic. Oh, that looks awful. Okay, so no big magic beyond that. You can see old, dirty, dusty, grimy. So yay me. Okay, here's where we're at. As I was sanding this down, I started to discover more about what lays beneath. And you know what? It's not in great shape. The wood is fairly damaged. There's been water damage to it. It's still solid, but it's press board primarily and worn kind of veneer on the sides that is here and there-ish. And so here's what I elected to do. And this is what happens sometimes when you're dealing with older pieces, that they might not be in as great a shape once you uncover what lies beneath. And this was looking a little shaky to begin with, and once I started to get off, I got off all of the white layer, which really was kind of peeling off in big plastic layers. And so rather than investing more time in this piece, because here's the decision that I had to make. Is this piece salvageable? Absolutely. Is it saleable? Not really. The amount of work that would need to go into this in terms of stripping down all of the paint, maybe wood filling in, missing veneer sections to make it perfectly smooth. You know what, I didn't even start on the legs that are all really pretty rough looking, unevenly painted. I don't want to have to strip all these down. I mean, this is going to be solid wood because it came from it looks like maybe a coffee table rather than this. The rest of it's not in great enough shape to spend the amount of time, and therefore that's expense, to be able to really, I'd have to make over a whole new top. So it's salvageable from the standpoint of it's still a perfectly serviceable, cute bench. I'm just not really going to be able to sell it in my shop. So what I'm going to do instead is, and here's where some of these decisions just kick in, I am going to paint this out. And I'm going to use up, and again, because I'm not selling this, I'm going to just use paint that is already open on my shelf. So I have an all-in-one paint from Melange called Azure, and I'm going to paint the legs in this blue, which is almost like a homestead blue from Fusion. And I do have a Fusion gray called Pebble, and I'm going to paint the top in this because I figure I might as well stencil the top. So I'm going to do some stenciling with the blue. So it's going to contrast nicely on here. But at this point, I'm going to be doing this for me, for my backyard, for fun. So I'm not looking at sinking any new money into it. I'm just going to use existing paint. And that's part of the decisions that we sometimes have to make as painters, is really just taking a look at the piece itself and whether or not it's going to be something that is going to be worth our time, money, and effort. This isn't a piece that's going to be in good enough shape that I'm going to feel comfortable selling it to my customers. So from that standpoint, I either just get rid of it or I fix it up for myself. I mean, there may be some things that I would fix up and then I gift to people, you know, that this is older, it's worn, and that's another way to go with it. But this isn't worth the time to take it back any further. So it's going to have some unfinished, you know, uneven finished lines where, you know, you've got some of the paint that's not totally sanded or smoothed out, but we're just going to make it cute, and we're going to make it cute on a budget. Because this bench is ending up being for me, I am going to stencil onto it the same stencil that I did for the little director's chair that was also for me. So they're gonna kind of match, kind of coordinate together. So this is the old Whitmore cotton stencil from Jamie Ray Vintage. And I am going to use the same blue color that I did the legs in so that they will coordinate. Now, what I do want to do with this is I'm also going to do some little stripes on either side, but because this is still cold to the touch, which means it's still slightly wet, I don't want to tape it. So I'm not going to be taping my stencil and just risking it. And I'm going to hold off on a taping until I give this overnight to be able to fully dry enough that I'm not going to risk losing, and I'm not going to risk having any of the paint peel up or anything like that. So I'm just going to continue getting this entire thing stenciled, and then I will let it dry overnight along with the rest of the gray paint, and then we'll do a little bit of taping off tomorrow and get it done. This base coat has had overnight to dry, and what I want to do is set it up to just do a couple of little, just some green sack stripes down here on the end to kind of balance out this pattern in the middle. So I'm just putting a piece of tape here as a bit of a width marker. I want 2 widths of that tape here and a little bit more over here. So it just serves as kind of the markers so that I know widths, and it helps me line everything up straight. So what I'm looking at, this is going to be my first painted line. And I have this really skinny tape. That's going to be one of the green sack stripes in the gray. And then I need another painted line on this side. So I need this to come down here. There we go. So this is where I'm going to paint. The rest is going to be gray. And you just want to kind of burnish in the sections where the paint is going to be. Now, you have a couple of methods of doing this. And you've seen me on other videos where, to avoid any bleed through on the lines, you can paint these first, either side of the tape, with your base coat, either a clear top coat or with your base coat. So if there's any bleed through, it'll be this silver gray, or it would be your clear. And then you can use a paintbrush to paint. Because I'm using the all-in-one, it does leave a bit of a textured stipple from when I was pouncing to do my stencil here. So I'm gonna paint these like a stencil. So I'm gonna go grab my stencil brush and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so I have my plate with some of that azure blue on it. And I just want to make sure that I've offloaded some of the paint. I want this fairly dry. And instead of painting my stripes, I'm just going to stipple the same way that I do my stencil. And you could paint them instead. I'm just doing this one. It eliminates bleed through. If I was doing big stripes, I'm going to do it the method I described to you. But for this, because it's pretty small, I'm just going to stipple it. And I want to get my edging too. And just because then it's going to have the same look and texture as my letters. And it's a small enough project that it's not a big deal. And here we go, finished little bench. Now, it looks super cute. So again, definitely worth fixing up. So a little light cleaning, definitely some sanding, painting, but really this is the paint. This is the paint, you know, some stenciling, making it look as cute as it does. However, cuteness aside, this is a piece that I will end up keeping and using for myself. It is not a piece that I will put for sale into the shop. And the reasons are, as I told you, I mean, it was definitely a piece that was salvageable. It's going to be of use to me and my family for many years to come. But when I'm offering something up for sale, I want it to be something that is in better condition and shape, that when, you know, they're looking closer at it, it's a nice smooth finish. You're not seeing, you know, some of the grooves from the missing veneer, all that kind of stuff. So it looks great from a distance. It looks better from a distance than it does up close. So the quality is not there for what I would offer for sale in shop, but it's definitely structurally sound enough for me to have prettied up for use in my backyard and my back patio. And that's some of the decisions that you, if you're a maker, need to consider. If you're just doing it for yourself, you're just making it look nice. And if you can get, you know, 2 to 5 years out of it, you know, this was $0 to me apart from my time in the paint, then man, definitely a deal, definitely worth it. But if you were looking at selling something and selling it in your booth, then you need to consider what's the amount of time that I would need to invest to make that something that is, one, going to sell, but two, that represents what I stand for, the level of quality that I stand for. And if I was selling this piece, then I would have had to have stripped off all of that veneer. I would have had to have sanded the rough MDF that was under the veneer down. I probably would have had to have done some wood fill to be able to smooth it out. There was a lot more work and time that had to go into it, and I would not have been able to have priced this and sold this at a price that would have paid me for that time and effort. So if I was only considering this for the shop, then this would have been scrap. But because I could personally use it, it was okay. And as much as this wasn't the lesson that I was looking at teaching you today, it's a good lesson to bear in mind if you have a shop of your own as to when and where you have to call it quits on a piece. If I was selling this, I would have called it quits. But as it is, it's gonna look great in my backyard. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. Love to hear from you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.